for both organizations as well. Please donate whatever you can. There are also links on our website for donations, as well as links to sign up to volunteer alongside us at their holiday events in December. Thank you in advance for your generous support, and now representatives from both Nextdoor Solutions and Allen Rock Counseling Center will tell you a bit more about the work that they are doing in our community. Speaking first will be Esther from Nextdoor Solutions, and following her will be Stacy from Allen Rock Counseling Center. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Esther.
Good evening, everyone. Nextdoor Solutions is the oldest and largest domestic violence service provider in Santa Clara County. We are celebrating 48 years this year. I can't tell you the number of people I run into that were there early on and said, oh, I used to serve on the board, or oh, I helped you raise money for X, Y, and Z. So the most surprising one lately was Ann Ravel, who was our former county council of the county of Santa Clara, and is now a candidate for Senate District 15. But she said to me, the founder, B. Robinson Mendez, recruited me, and she would not let me off the hook. So it was really nice to see them both this week at our Light Up the Night annual event. Just to give you a little bit of background about Nextdoor, the 4 domestic violence crisis lines get about 22,000 phone calls from people that need help every year. If you take all 15 police departments in Santa Clara County and add up their 911 calls for domestic violence, they get about 6,000. So a lot of people need help that never ever call law enforcement. Nextdoor Solutions answers a little over 15,000 of those phone calls. So we definitely are the largest provider. 2/3 of the domestic violence services offered in Santa Clara County come through Nextdoor. We're sort of seeing a shift at Nextdoor Solutions. You know, in the past it was mostly women and children that we see running around the building. We're seeing a lot more men. And ever since sort of the Me Too movement and people being more open about the violence that's happening and that has happened to them, we also see men starting to step up, which is really interesting. We received some funding from the County of Santa Clara to expand our men's support group. We operate the only men's support group for men who are victims of domestic violence. And so it is much harder. There's a lot more stigma for a man to say, I'm in an abusive situation and I need help. But it's become very common now to see them in the building, coming for services, coming to our computer lab, bringing their children to Kids Club. And so we were really excited to hear about the club wanting to support us. And one way to do that is with our winter open house. Every Christmas, we host a party, essentially, for our clients and their children. We get anywhere from 650 to 800 people that come to our building on a Saturday. So there's 2 opportunities. We are in desperate need of gift cards because we want every family to come, for the children to receive stuffed animals and books, but also to have a meal and to have some holiday nourishment. And so the gift cards allow families to go purchase things that they need for their holiday meal. $25 increments are what we're looking for. If you can support us by donating gift cards, that's our biggest need right now. They can be from Target, they can be from Denny's, Walmart, although a lot of people don't like Walmart. It is what a lot of our clients use, so we're just putting that out there. But we're happy to get any kind of support that you're willing to give us. And we invite you to come and check us out. You can actually come. We operate the only after-hours walk-in service. So you can actually go to Nextdoor Solutions right now and walk into the lobby without an appointment, without calling, and just say, I need help and I need to talk to an advocate, and you can be seen tonight. We don't close the door after 7:30, even though that's when the lobby closes, because sometimes people are still needing help 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And so we would love for you to come by. If you're interested in seeing what we do at Nextdoor, you can come to our, give me a call, send me an email and say, I want to come tour and see what you guys do, possibly volunteer. We're happy to have you there because it will take all of us to end domestic violence in the moment and for all time. Thank you so much for your support.
And Communications Officer at Allen Rock Counseling Center. Thank you for giving me a few moments to talk with you about our good work and our toy drive. For those of you who are not familiar with the Allen Rock Counseling Center, our mission is to heal families and inspire youth to reach their full potential. We've been serving San Jose and the surrounding communities since 1974. And we currently support over 9,000 youth and families throughout Santa Clara County annually. The youth that we serve range from age 0 to age 19. Many are at high risk for things like academic failure, for involvement in the juvenile justice and dependency systems, for gang involvement, for substance abuse, and for sustained poverty. So we currently provide 13 different programs that offer a wide range of mental and behavioral counseling, as well as educational support. And it's the whole spectrum. It ranges from prevention and early intervention, which can involve training and education, all the way to crisis intervention and support. We have a 24/7 crisis hotline. We also provide mobile on-site response. And I think that's one of the things that really makes Allen Rock Counseling Center special, is that we meet our clients where they are, not only emotionally, but linguistically, culturally, and physically as well. We see them in their homes, we see them out in the community. We're located in over 50 schools locally, and we also see them at our clinic in East San Jose. Our overarching goals are to keep at-risk youth safe in school and drug and violence free. For those who are interested in learning, I know time is limited. I did bring brochures that give a little more information about our impact and about the programs. So if you're interested, Frank can just pass those out. So why do we do a toy giveaway event? Well, sometimes a key factor in mental and behavioral health is just feeling included, just feeling like you weren't the only kid in school who didn't get a gift for the holidays. And so the way we work it is each one of ARCC's counselors, we have about 60 plus counselors, can invite the youth and families that they feel can most benefit from the event and are in greatest need. And this includes the siblings of the youth we serve. So last year we sponsored 500 youth and families at the event, and then we gave out another 200 to 300 gifts afterwards. And that's what we're really asking you to help us support this year, is to help us provide gifts for the event. So what I will say is that last year we had the Supervisor Chavez come and wrap gifts at the event. We added Omar Torres from Carrasco's office. We have Joan Molina from Supervisor Cortese's office, and I hope that some of you will consider joining us at the event this year, just because it's a great way to kick off the holiday season. There's more information on the website. Thank you very much for having me here today.
So flyers for Next Door Solution over at the check-in table as well. So next up we have Otto Lee, who we endorsed last month for Board of Supervisors District 3.
Good evening, Democrats. Let's try again. Good evening, Democrats. All right, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for your awesome support last month. It really was amazing how many of you came through. And I apologize for not being here myself in person, but I'm really honored to, of course, receive this. So first thing I was able to do, I would say, is like we need to thank you, and no better way to thank you to thank your stomach. So today we are allowed to bring in some food. Now I always go to so many Democratic meetings, right? And usually you get half of dinner. Well, tonight I said, you know what, nobody should leave here hungry. So please enjoy. That's the least I can do to thank you for all your great work. And then honestly, it's not just about an endorsement. I think it really is the hard work what we Democrats do. After all, I mean, having seen the change what we've done in this past Congress, where we switched 7 seats in the House, I'm very concerned that some of those seats might switch back.
Yeah.
Okay, TJ Cox won by 862 votes, and Valadeo is back. He wants to take that seat back. And I know that because that's actually Devin Nunes' first cousin, and some of you might know I ran against Devin Nunes, so I know a little bit about Central Valley. That place is not easy. And then I just heard some bad news as far as rumor of Katie Hill, with some rumors that came through, some personal issues came through, and I'm sure the Republicans will use that to attack her dignity and things like that. So these seats are very vulnerable. We really need to fight hard to help our candidates to defend those seats. We might have a still pickup as well. So I won't say, I suppose we all want to replace that guy in the White House. I don't even want to mention his name, but there are other races that is just, if not even more important for the House to stay in the correct hands. And of course the Senate, because we need that as well in order to appoint the right judges. Let's be real, guys. In terms of Roe v. Wade, it is really under attack right now. They don't do it directly, they're not that way, but they try to chip it one by one. You can see the cases that's being picked by the Supreme Court right now. That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. They're very strategic about this, and what we don't hear, we keep hearing about Supreme Court justices. The sad part is there are hundreds of United States District Court judges at the district court level. Javed Bono is another good friend of mine, attorney who practiced law for many years in my same building, and the Court of Appeal judges. These are lifetime appointments, lifetime, which means once they're in there, they're in there for a good 30 years. They specifically pick them young, about 40, 50 years old, so they could be there for 20, 30 plus years. So I think the damage that this administration has done, even though he's only hopefully been there for 4 years, these judges will be there for decades. So I think it's so important that we remind ourselves there's a lot greater at stake than just the White House. As for the local election of the county, I just really want your support. As you can see, I'm carrying my bag. I actually came from precinct walk. I am walking every day. One of my best team is my team member right there, my 8-year-old Stella. Stella, raise your hand. She's actually one of my best team members. Because my 8-year-old with me, they cannot slam the door on me. And my other 2 members is my 12-year-old, my 14-year-old is Aubrey. Yeah, right there. And my second daughter, Hillary, who's not here, 8 years old, who is now just turned 12. Hillary named after Hillary. That's my odd team and even team when we go down the streets and talk to voters. And honestly, it's the most grassroots way of campaigning. You get to really hear the issues, what's going on in your neighborhood. And if you've not done it for a while, come right up. I'll be honored to get your support and train you to go knock on doors. And there's no better time than now because it's not too hot, it's not too cold, but it gets up pretty early. So we'd love to get you out there weekday, weekend. We're working hard. And again, thank you very, very much for your wonderful support. We have a lot of exciting things going on this coming year, and we're going to get rid of this guy in the White House. Thank you very, very much.
So next, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Cindy Chavez, who I'm sure needs no introduction in this room. She has been serving our community for decades, formerly as Vice Mayor of San Jose, and now as a supervisor for the county. She has been...
Am I going to use that?
Yeah.
Right. You guys have it all figured out?
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you want to.
So you use this picture.
Okay.
So she was instrumental in passing Measure A to fund affordable housing in our county. She's helped establish LGBTQ housing, in addition to passing bail reform, which is the first of its kind in the state. And she's promoting a women's agenda, which has included increasing funding for services for sexual assault survivors, helping clear the backlog of rape kits, and really led not just locally, but also set an example for the rest of the state. So thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Which is a good thing, because I think we get people's kind of crystallized thinking. So what we're going to do is each candidate is going to get an opportunity to introduce themselves, and they get 1 minute, which is so difficult. And then I'm going to ask them 5 questions, and so they each get 1 minute, and then 5 questions that are going to have 1 minute, 30 seconds. And then you get to ask questions. So what I wanted to let all of you know is, as you're thinking about your questions, they're only going to have 1 minute to answer. So your question should be about that, you know, it should be really tightly framed, all right? We're giving you a chance to think about that. So Shelley, do you mind if we start with you? And we're gonna have you pass the mic and then we'll go right into questions.
And I'm the timer.
Oh, that's right.
I'd love to have the timer right in front of me.
Right.
Thank you. Well, if you want to know where somebody's going to go, take a look at where they've been. I'm Shelley Mazer, running for State Senate. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about where I've been. I've been fighting for women's health and reproductive rights my whole adult life, putting my body in between people who sought to shut down women's health clinics and the women who are seeking their health care. I've been a fighter for public education, first as a mom in a low-income school in Mountain View, and then later as a Redwood City school board member, fighting for our district as we lived through the state budget cuts. I've been a fighter for a path out of poverty as a Redwood City councilwoman, passing the minimum wage, addressing affordable housing, and increasing access to high-quality, affordable childcare. I'm excited to take all the work that I've done at the local level for the last 14 years up to the state and fight for the things that we care about: access to healthcare, housing, transportation, education, which is what inspired me, and of course, addressing the climate crisis. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you so much.
Ellen Sirleaf Johnson said, if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. I have big dreams for California, and I look forward to discussing them here with you today. My key issues are housing and transportation, education and the environment. I founded Clean Tech for Obama and started a national effort to rally the clean energy and green business leaders for Obama, and then worked on the green stimulus program. I founded something called the Full Circle Fund, and for that I won the Jefferson Award, started by Jackie Kennedy Onassis and others, to recognize leaders in public and community service. I look forward to discussing my goals and dreams here with you all today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing us together tonight. As you can tell, I am not Mike. I am his wife. He is my life partner. He's helped me raise 4 kids. He's taken our family around the world in the Foreign Service, and he's washed our dishes almost every night. So I know him pretty well. I may not know the issues quite as well as he does, so bear with me. Mike is running for Senate because he gets it and he'll get it done. He's been working on hard things for more than 30 years, from his early days as a U.S. diplomat serving our country in Syria, Washington, D.C., Hong Kong, and China, to his 18 years in local government, twice serving as mayor in our city. Tomorrow, Burlingame will be breaking ground on 132 units of affordable housing in the middle of our downtown, 54 units for seniors and 78 for working families. And of those 132 units, 82 of them will be for people earning only 50% of area median income. This is a project Mike launched 5 years ago, and it's finally coming to fruition.
So we're gonna ask you to stop. We're gonna be a little strict about the time. Sorry about
here. And so you've been with me through a lot of different changes. I served on city council and as mayor of Mountain View, and then served for 3 terms in the state assembly. And I also came out of the women's rights movement and also did clinic defense, as so many of us did in the 70s and 80s. And it is really appalling to me that we still have the same fight on our hands. And I think that we need to have a women's agenda at the state level as well, because affordable housing at all levels is a women's issue. A clean, sustainable environment is a women's issue. Equal pay is definitely, for sure, a women's issue. And I think that it really is telling that we have no women representing legislative districts on this side of the bay, from Oregon to Santa Barbara. Let's change it.
So what I'm gonna do, so give them all a big round of applause of the poor.
Okay, 3 things. I'm going to be working for a wealth tax on the unearned income of California's billionaires to go to and extend rights to our
Annie?
Oh, I'm not Annie.
Oh, you're not, what is your first name?
I'm not. My name is Marty Birchall.
Marty.
I'm here
Sorry about that.
representing,
Yes, I
Mike
apologize.
Brown. Yeah, that's okay.
All right.
So obviously we can't balance, we can't put the needs, the economic needs of California on the backs of regular citizens. Mike believes that California is fully taxed at this point, and what he spent his career doing is trying to find solutions to make monies that exist go farther. He is financially literate, and he is creative, and he's come up with solutions in our city to pay for things without taxing people more. I will say he also believes in split roll for Proposition 13. That can bring a huge source of funding for education. Another source of funding for education, it's not as much, but when we all voted for the California State Lottery, we thought we were going to be giving a certain percentage to education, and the legislature, took much of that away. So we need to get that back.
Thank you.
Not a bad choice. And we all have great democratic values. And I think one of the questions is, how will we be able to execute? Who will be able to get things done in Sacramento? And I'm sure we all in various ways. One advantage I have is I have the endorsement of Governor Newsom. And I've worked with Governor Newsom for many years, and his budget chair is someone who's a friend, Phil Ting, who's chair of the Budget Committee in the Assembly, has also endorsed me. So I talk to them regularly about the state budget, and I will do three things. One is increase revenue. We're the only state without an oil extraction tax, the only oil producing state. In Texas, they have an oil extraction tax. It pays for the UT system. We do not have one. Communities and schools first act, the split roll, absolutely. And there's more that we can do there as well. We're one of the few states that doesn't have any tax on services whatsoever, so even a small one would add a lot of value. We have to get our priorities straight. Around the first time I ran for assembly, I came a very close second. I ran because I'm on the board of UC Merced, I'm a founding trustee. And the UC budget, the prison budget used to be 1/3 of the UC budget, now the prison budget, as Sally said, is bigger than UC, CSU, community college combined. So I will make sure that we add more revenue and that we protect social services and education. That's the part that always gets squeezed at the bottom of the budget, and I will protect that. Thank you.
Thank you. As it come first, but I'll just reiterate a few that are important to me. And I agree that we do need somebody who can get things done in Sacramento, and that's why I think having 14 years of local experience working with Sacramento and locally is an important piece of the puzzle. So let me tell you the three things for me. One is I will start with Schools and Communities First initiative. Closing the corporate property tax loophole would bring in $11 billion to our state, and it would be distributed the way our property taxes are distributed, with a little bit of an extra set aside for low-income schools. $4.5 billion to schools. I think that's a really critical piece. The other reason why it's important is because we live in a boom and bust cycle with the state budget, because we're so reliant on personal income tax and capital gains tax. So when the economy goes down, the state budget goes down like that. So we have to look at ways that we're going to level it out, and closing the corporate property tax loophole will be one of them. I do think, in particular around prisons, closing private prisons is going to be really critically important. We must work on that as we're decreasing the prison population. And then the third is, the budget and the legislature has set aside money for a rainy day, and they have additional funding that they have set aside for one-time expenditures. We need to continue that practice so that when we do go into a budget downturn, we don't have to start cutting right away. We have reserves that we can rely on, like all of us do who serve at the local level. Thank you.
Can you hand that to Marty? How spicy can it
I'm so excited.
We'll start, we're gonna let everybody go first at least once. And so, Marty, this will be for you. To start, besides overturning Citizens United, what is one specific thing you will do if elected, what you will make your husband do if elected, to reduce the impact of money in state elections?
It sure is. I know, I can't believe I have to go first on this one.
Okay, give that mic to Josh.
Okay, Josh. I think we should, this is what I think. I think we should emulate the Canadians and set an election date, and 6 weeks ahead, we have people start campaigning, and we just take all this money that's going to be used on campaigns and use it somewhere else. There's many better uses. I don't exactly, I'm sure my husband has a position on this or has thought about it. I'm sorry, I don't know, but I could get back to you all in a written form tomorrow. He can give you his answer.
Great, thank you.
Also help them raise money. We can do this. We have to get it on the ballot. We get it on the ballot, I think it will pass. I'm very proud to have done a lot of work with the Clean Money Coalition. And I thank Sally for all the work that she's done with the Clean Money Coalition and introducing me to Trent almost 10 years ago. And very proud of the the impact that we've made. Sometimes that's the big dream, which we'll do, but there's also been a lot of little progress that's been made in the last few years around clean money, around transparency for political ads, and other things that reduce the effect of corporate interest. That is the hardest thing. The worst thing about running for office in California, I will tell you, is the influence of special interests. You know, whatever we do, a special interest can come in and spend $1 million. They'll do it. And that is the worst thing and the hardest thing about running in California. So we'll never have the government that we fully want unless we curb the powers of special interests. Thank you.
A minimum that you need to raise is $500,000 just to make it through the primary, and that's just the primary. And if we care about all of these things that I know we're going to also talk about, we talked about saving, you know, protecting social services, protecting education, making sure that we're not balancing our budgets on the backs of the poor. Think of what we could do if we weren't spending this amount of money for people to get elected. And I think about how I could spend my time if I weren't spending all of the time I'm spending making phone calls to ask people to give me money. I could be spending it on the issues that I have been working on for many, many years and continuing to serve my community. So that, and I think we definitely have to continue the transparency and who's paying for things, social media ads, the cards that get mailed to us in the mail, all of those different pieces, we need to know who's paying for them, and we need to know who the funders of the groups that are paying for them.
On the Disclose Act, and that is the byline at the bottom of those pieces. So it doesn't just say People for a Better California, but it has to say with major funding from Chevron and PG&E and et cetera. So that's very, very important, and I know that folks here worked on that a lot to achieve that. I do agree that public financing is the next step, and many folks here also worked on Prop 15 of a few years ago. And we need to get that over the finish line because part of the California Constitution is a prohibition on public financing of candidates. And I think that we also need to have accountability among candidates. There are 3 candidates in this race who have said that they will raise and spend up to the limit of $930,000. That's too much money. That's too much influence. And what the money in politics crowds out are policies that we need for our communities. Empowerment of people with disabilities, getting people of modest means to the next step, protecting workers, getting women to the next step in terms of equity and equality. We can't do that when there's so much of an influence of money. So I'm not going to be spending the limit. I'm not going to raise the limit. I'm not going to fill people's mailboxes and have that rush of mail that you can't even find your bills because there's so much garbage in your box. And we have to go on a money diet.
Thank you. Jerry Hill was an advocate for PG&E oversight as well as other public utilities, particularly after the San Bruno explosions. What will you do to ensure that the state exercises actual oversight?
Amount of time talking to him about this issue and what comes next. So I think there's oversight. So what do we want it to look like in the future? It is bankrupt now, so we have influence. Do we want it to just be a poles and wires company? What is going to advance clean energy the most? And I know there's a lot of supporters here of clean energy. And again, this is where I've devoted a lot of my life to. I started out of college counseling at EPA and then working with DOD on Superfund sites. We started the first ever Clean Air Marketplace Conference. I mentioned Clean Tech for Obama. Port Menlo Spark, so we actually passed the most aggressive fossil fuel-free building standard in the country in Menlo Park recently, and we helped lead that effort with Menlo Spark. So all these things are now possible, right? We're making great gains, but what do we want it to look like? But we do need true accountability for PG&E to make it happen. So one thing, you know, San Diego Gas and Electric, they made all the fire safety provisions that they needed to do. They undergrounded 60% of their wires. PG&E didn't do that. So number one, these shutdowns should not be happening. We need to hold them accountable. SDG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric did it. PG&E did not. And now they want to go for a 10.5% guaranteed rate of return. They asked for a 16% guaranteed rate of return. So they're using this as a money grab. We've now pushed them back, but now they're going for a 12.5% guaranteed rate of return before the PUC. So we absolutely need to hold them accountable, and I will. Thanks.
has been a wonderful advocate for PG&E is with the CPUC. The Public Utilities Commission is the body that provides the oversight to our utilities. And so the legislature has the ability to work with or hold them accountable, the CPUC. Maybe many of you heard last week or 2 weeks ago when the power shutdowns were happening and Senator Hill was on the radio talking about the letter he was sending to the CPUC to understand the reasons behind the shutdown, the explanation behind what was happening, and then what was the remedy going to be. So that when we are having high winds, did any of you get a notice today? They're looking to shut down again in San Mateo and Santa Clara County. And so what happens to people who are on dialysis, people who need to keep their medications cold, people who don't have access to some other place where they can store their food? There's a lot of different issues that come along with that. So making sure that the CPUC is doing their job is the #1 piece of work that is the role of the next state senator, and I will do that.
I think that one of the things that has to happen is to get the legislature off of PG&E money, and that's something that I would do differently than our current senator. Because when you take the money from those big PACs that has PG&E money in it, it's the same thing as taking it from PG&E. And so we need to end that practice. And I absolutely agree that the legislature forcing the hand of the PUC, particularly since some good reforms and changes have happened within the PUC, is where we're going to get the change from. I've been talking over the past couple of years with Elizaveta Malashenko, who is the regulator at the PUC. And I am really pleased that she is seeing through all of PG&E's protestations. She's looking at the Freedom of Information Act requests that were done, and I hope everybody here had a chance to see the Wall Street Journal article from July that said that PG&E absolutely knew in the case of Paradise, California, that there were dangerous conditions that could cause a firestorm. This is what corporate malfeasance looks like. And we need to name it and call it out and shame it. And I'm so disgusted that executives jumped out of there like rats from a sinking ship, taking their money with them. And we can't have that kind of unaccountability in California.
Senator Hill has been someone who's been talking about PG&E for a long time, and before some of the fires that have happened, going back probably even before the San Bruno explosion, which we felt at our house in Burlingame. Michael is a strong advocate. This is the time to make the utility a public utility. Privately held utilities, traditionally, the reason to have a privately held utility is because you would have better oversight, that the Board of Trustees would provide better oversight, and that in a privately held utility, they would have the ability to tap capital, a lot of capital, which they might need for big projects. Well, the oversight reason does not exist for PG&E. Their oversight has been terrible. I mean, so many people have died. We don't have to go over all the examples. And in terms of tapping capital, California is a very big and wealthy state. We can get the capital we need for projects. So the first thing to do is to get that 10% rate of return off the books, give that back to the people by giving it back to the utility, and make it a public, a government, a California agency. Thank you.
Required to register as sex offenders. Do you support a legislative fix to close the marital rape loophole in California law?
Yeah, I mean, that is those are the kinds of laws that we need to be addressing and we need to be changing if we're going to ever get to a place where women are fully equal in our society. If we're not addressing how women are treated in and out of their relationships, we're not addressing their lives. If we're not addressing economic equality, if we're not addressing the ability to be supported when we choose to have children, there are a whole variety of areas that are of importance to women and men that make us a more equal society. I think Sally pointed out something that was really important, so I just want to reiterate it. which is the composition of the state legislature, and the importance of having different voices at the table when we're making policy. Having women's voices at the table makes a difference. And because in our Bay Area, 17% of the elected officials, state level elected officials, are women. 17% in the 9 Bay Area counties. That is less than half of what the entire state legislature has across California. So I think that it's time to change that.
Change that, and when I was in the state legislature, I saw so many times that bills came forward who, if women had not been there to carry them, they would not have been brought forward. And I don't want to just strictly toot my own horn, but I carried the legislation to ban the shackling of women inmates during labor, delivery, and recovery. And that bill was not coming forward before a woman brought it forward. I co-authored a bill to stop insurance companies from overcharging clinics that were providing abortion services if they had been victimized through firebombing or other acts of terror. And that was another woman's bill that would not have come forward. I carried the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights to ban police departments and district attorneys from discarding rape kits unless they notified the person who had been victimized that the evidence had been collected from. And I have to say that it is harder to get elected as a woman. The thing about when women run, women win is a complete fallacy. It's harder to get elected, but in some ways it's easier to hold office because people are more willing to tell you the vulnerable details of their lives. And you can turn those into legislation and get real change out of them, and that matters.
Could you just repeat the question so I answer it exactly as you wrote it?
Under California law, marital rape is treated differently from all other rape. For example, individuals convicted of marital rape as opposed to all other sex offenses, including many far less serious crimes, are not required to register as sex offenders. Do you support a legislative fix to close the marital rape loophole in California?
I do, and I know that Mike does, and I don't know why we have a special definition for a rape that would occur under someone's, in their home. I mean, rape is rape, and that's, we need to fix that. So whoever gets there, I hope they'll do that. Thank you.
I was talking earlier today with a prominent LGBTQ activist, and she said in the state legislature, a lot of the easy stuff has been done. Now it's the hard stuff. And it's really going back and fixing stuff. It's little by little. Like that change you talked about, we have to go back and fix all the things, all the injustices that were done in the past. We have to go back and fix those. And I just want to thank the folks from Next Door Solutions who spoke today for the work that they're doing. One of the things that I do right now is I run a legal technology accelerator. So we have a lot of access to justice companies. And one is called JDO. It's an anonymous platform for reporting sexual harassment. So you can report it, have all the details there, stay anonymous. You can then be forwarded to a lawyer if you want, or it can just stay up there all very secure. And if someone else reports the same harasser, then you can be notified, and then you can together take action. So I think we're seeing a lot of innovative solutions and innovative ideas coming forward, and thank you for Michelle Dauber and others in this room for their leadership on all these issues. So we need to hold the state legislature accountable as well for the way that they treat harassment claims, and that's been getting a little better, but that's another issue. So we got to do the hard stuff now, and I'm willing to roll my sleeves and work on it. Thanks.
If you have questions, and we're gonna get out to you, but like I said, try to make them clear and concise, like this one. Do you support the Green New Deal? Why or why not?
Yeah, I have it at the federal level. There is so much that we can do, and we only really have about 10 years to do it in, and that's not a lot of time in legislative terms. One of the reasons that the PG&E crisis is so pressing is that we need a strong, robust electrical grid in California. because extreme weather, extreme wind is only going to be increasing over time. And we have to get off the natural gas that we're 70% dependent on and get onto clean, renewable sources of electricity. This is much of the work that I did in the State Assembly, where I carried legislation to mandate green building standards and to include green standards for our school construction, incentives for electric and hybrid cars. And we have to get as much as we can in terms of our vehicle fleet, equipment, houses, buildings, everything onto electricity. And we need to do it with union labor, with good jobs. And we can bring together the environment and union labor. That's what we did with the Bay Restoration Authority, that now has $550 million to give out towards environmental projects, to recreating wetlands to be our buffers on the bay, and all projects that are more than $1 million are under project labor agreements.
The Green New Deal, and we need to move faster in California. We are the hope of the nation. This is an issue I'm especially passionate about, and I want to go up there and be the progressive leader in the state Senate on climate. How many folks here have solar on their homes? All right, pretty good, almost half. How many have an electric car or hybrid car? Excellent. Well, good, we can all lead by example. I have a 6-point plan. It's everything from, one, we've done a good job of electrifying our grid, but now we've got to plug our transportation sector into the grid, right? We need more electric vehicle infrastructure. We need to do more on clean air. All the 2-stroke motors for leaf blowers and lawn mowers, they're going to have more particulate matter by 2020 than all the cars on the road in California, unless we do something about it. Farming and ag tech, that'll be part of my solution as well. We can do carbon sequestration. We have to go further than just getting to the zero energy goal, which I helped set with SB 100. We actually have to take carbon now out of the atmosphere. We have to support clean energy innovation. That's one of the things that our area can especially do, and can especially lead the state in, is spurring clean energy innovation. So these are all parts of my plan on climate, and I want to go up there and work every day on this issue. We have to. This is the issue right now, and California is the only hope. Thanks.
Urgent. California can pat itself on the back. It's been leading a race of slow runners, however. We have to do better. We have to do more to get to zero carbon energy. And California has set a goal to get to zero carbon energy by 2045. That's not soon enough. If the greenest, richest government in this world, which is California, can't get to zero carbon by 2045, and the rest of this country won't get there until 2075, and the rest of the world, the developing world, won't get there till 2100, and that is actually too late. That's too late for our children, that's too late for our grandchildren, it's too late for the planet. So we have to do better, and there are ways that we can do better. And Mike has ideas for doing that, and job one, first day, is affordability, and it's also climate. And so we just have to get on this, and we have to do it right now. Yes.
Yes, I do support the Green New Deal, but I think there's some other things we need to think about. It's been alluded to in the other answers. First of all, Assemblymember Gloria proposed a resolution this year that would have declared a climate crisis in California. And in declaring a climate crisis, it would have moved the goals that have been mentioned in 2045 and 2040 for carbon-free electricity up to 2030. So I think we absolutely have to revisit that. We have to move the goals up faster. My 3 kids, my daughter just graduated from college, and she's a first-year teacher. And I tell this story only because it was kind of like a wake-up call for me and a reminder of why this is so important. She said, sort of half joking, well, I guess I don't really need to save for retirement because I don't know if the planet's going to be here. And she, you know, like, that is a reality for our young people. And so it is on us, as Greta Thunberg said, to do what we need to do to save the planet. So I'll be real quick on a couple of other things. On reach codes, moving towards all electric buildings, we're doing that in Redwood City, we're about to take it up. We do have to expand the mix of power as we move towards more electricity. We have to work on methane capture. And then in all of this, we need to make sure that we're retraining workers who have been working in other areas so that they have an opportunity to participate in our economy.
Great. Questions that are concise and clear, and are we taking the mic to them, or are we gonna have them come here?
Yeah,
wanna
we
come
can
up?
move the mic.
Oh,
Let's
perfect,
move it
let's do that.
in case you're scared of coming up to the front.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and just come up and speak directly into the mic.
I have a short question which may require long answers. I would like to ask, what experience in government is each of the candidates bringing?
All right, so why don't we start with, I think it was, Shelley, can we start with you?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, and then I'll get myself organized.
Okay. Yeah, well, I said at the beginning, I spent 10 years on the Redwood City School Board, spent that time during the recession making difficult decisions, trying to make sure that our district did the best that it could for our kids. I spent the last 4 years on the Redwood City Council working on ensuring that we continue to have a diverse community. I actually ran for council because I wanted to make sure that the voices of families and education were heard on the council. If you've been to Redwood City recently, you've seen that there's been a lot of development, and I really wanted to make sure that we were taking into account what was happening in the schools and what the impacts of development were on schools and also on our families. The reason I decided to run for Senate were 2 things: public education and access to high quality health care for everyone. My master's in public health spurs me on to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to make sure everyone has health care.
Thanks. I'm very proud to have experience at the local, state, and national level. So right now I'm a county commissioner in San Mateo County for the Child Care Partnerships Council. So we're responsible for child care and early learning in San Mateo. I'm on the state workforce board. Governor Jerry Brown appointed me to that board, which means I've been there a while. So I've been there for 7 years on the state workforce board. And actually I worked in Congress. I was a press secretary for a congresswoman. She was the first Democrat in 116 years from the district I grew up in, outside of Philadelphia. And I'm really proud that a lot of the people that I've met along the way, a lot of the office holders are now endorsing me. So Gavin Newsom, I met during some of the 19 years of nonprofit work. Our governor right now has endorsed my campaign. Ro Khanna, any Ro Khanna fans here? We're in Ro Khanna territory. Very proud to have Ro Khanna's endorsement as well. And in San Mateo County, I have the only two supervisors who have both endorsed my campaign. So very proud to have a lot of local endorsements and national ones too.
Mike has 30 years of experience serving the public. He started his career as a Foreign Service officer. He worked for 12 years for the U.S. State Department, serving our country overseas in Damascus, in Washington, D.C., in Hong Kong, and in China. He served 8 years on the Burlingame Planning Commission, and in 2009 ran for Burlingame City Council and was elected. He's spent the last 10 years doing that and has been mayor twice. He has experience getting things done. In our town, they just voted on a new general plan that imagines building a whole new neighborhood near BART in Burlingame. And it's taking a light commercial area and rezoning it for housing, so there'll be mixed use. Tall buildings, a whole new neighborhood, new parks, probably a new school. That's exciting. That's going to increase our housing units by 20%. I mentioned that he has, they're breaking ground tomorrow on an affordable housing unit. Thank you.
I mentioned before the time that I served on city council and as mayor. I also served as a county commissioner on the County Social Services Commission, working on foster care, children in the dependency care system, on issues relating to families experiencing homelessness. And that really was very valuable experience to me, going to Sacramento. When I went to Sacramento, I had either the good luck or the bad luck, I don't know which it was, to be the one that got picked to be there at a time of our worst budget crisis in California history and in US history. So it was really getting thrown into the deep end of the pool. But being in the assembly and at that time having 440,000 constituents to serve was good training to now go into the state Senate, where you now have 980,000 constituents. So that's some of my experience.
So, long story short, my wife works at Stanford. We live in South San Jose, so we bought an electric car so she could get the carpool lane and cut her 2.5-hour commute to 1.5 hours. And 3 years later, we no longer qualified for a sticker and now have to buy a new car. And the new car that we had to buy was a hybrid, no longer electric. So we are now emitting where before we were not. I don't know if this is the auto lobby or what is going on there, but I want to know, as our state senators, what will you do, for example, have more carpool lanes instead of taking electric cars off the road, maybe more carpool lanes rather than regular lanes? I don't know, but please let me know what you might consider doing to address this issue. Thank you.
I've had a Prius for a long time and now my second Chevy Volt, and I hear your pain on the stickers. We need to be smarter. First of all, who wants to have a world-class transportation system here in the Bay Area? Isn't it time we have a world-class transportation system? You all travel, you go to Europe or Asia, you send us letters. How come we can't have this here and there? Well, I think we can. And there are some plans underway to do that, but it's going to also take leadership from Sacramento. And we need to do great separations up and down the peninsula so we can get Caltrain from 65,000 riders to 180,000 riders, and also Dumbarton Rail, and get east-west transportation going as well. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the California League of Conservation Voters. And I have that endorsement because I've worked most of my life on a lot of these environmental issues and transportation issues. So I think it would be nice to have more carpool lanes as well. We are working on an express lane in San Mateo County so we can add something, but there's a lot of work to do.
I try not to get on any of the roads, ever. Listen, this region, I didn't grow up here, Mike did grow up here. I have lived here a little more than 20 years. We're really a series of small cities now in the district. We're not bedroom communities, and cities demand transportation, and we need better transportation. Caltrain has the ability to increase capacity if it can get electrified, and we can get that running. The state needs to just make that commitment and make it happen. We need to complete BART. We need to lean in at least to figuring out if other solutions would help. There's a poor man's above ground metro proposed by Transform, where you take some express lanes on the highways and actually kind of have a metro running. That might be great. So we can expect more. We live in a very crowded place, and we can expect more from Sacramento.
I plead guilty to getting all those cars into the carpool lane. That was actually my legislation that did that. So now that the carpool lane is really clogged, often with the folks that pay their way through fast track into the lanes, I think that we have to do more. We have to up the expectations and really go back to when it was electric vehicles in those lanes, and not just the people that can pay to get in the lane with any vehicle of any kind of emissions. And I really feel like I'm in this, kind of the same boat as you, because my husband has a Volt that's 2 years older than mine. We have exactly the same emissions. He got a sticker for his. I have an outdated sticker that cannot be used on mine, and we have exactly the same emissions. So we have to clarify that and really get back to the environmental goals of the program. I think we also have to really push hard on this Caltrain 2040 plan, because the frequency of Caltrain is not enough to get people to take it, and the cost is way too high.
From Kristen anyway, so no worries. As we were driving down here from Redwood City, I have my campaign manager Mary with me, so we were eligible for the carpool lane, and one of the things I was complaining about was the people who didn't have a sticker or a second person in their car. And I was wishing for better enforcement on the carpool lanes. So I do think that's one of the things we really need to think about. We need to make sure that CHP is funded and doing its job in terms of making sure that people who shouldn't be in the carpool lane are not in the carpool lane. There's a couple of other things though that are important around this issue. One is that in terms of electric cars, we don't have the infrastructure for everybody to have an electric car yet. So we have a lot of gas stations, but we don't have a lot of electric vehicle charging stations. It's something local governments are primarily responsible for, but I think the state can help with that so that we are able to build that infrastructure faster and that more people can purchase and use their electric vehicles.
Thank you. I want 1 minute.
Yeah, we can do a 1 minute.
Okay. All right.
My name is Jerry Hunt, and I have a suggestion about a way to control rents.
Well, thanks, Jerry. You know, the California legislature has passed a form of rent control recently, and so that's going to be the law, and hopefully that's going to help renters. But the other part of the problem is that we have to make sure that we retain rental units in our district as affordable. There are many rental units that are de facto affordable. Often they're owned by mom and pops, but when they go to sell to cash in for their nest egg, they're sold to developers and those become unaffordable, or condos. So we need to help the nonprofit housing groups be able to compete for those housings. When you take the profit motive out of renting, rents remain affordable, and it's a crucial thing. It's crucial for our workforce families, it's crucial for our teachers, it's crucial for our firefighters and police officers. It's something we really have to get done.
Every level, and we need to make all the situations that people find themselves on, whether it's women overnighting on the 22 bus for safety, or women trying to get to shelters that are often in deserted industrial areas. We need to make all of those situations better for the people that are impacted by them, and I think that's what's really the most important thing. There is an affordability crisis overall in the Bay Area. The cost of everything is going up. And it's not just the rents for the renters and traditional buildings, it's the space rent for people who live in the mobile.
So I just spent the afternoon in a committee meeting talking about affordable housing in Redwood City and what more can we do to make it possible for people to stay in their homes. So I'll just say a couple of things that we have done. So we have lifted up housing as our #1 priority as a council. I sit on our strategic plan committee where we have been able to drill down into what does that actually mean, what is the city going to actually do in this area. And so we've adopted the 3 Ps, which I know many of you have heard of: preserve, protect, and produce. On the production side, we have almost 500 units of affordable housing that we're either breaking ground on or will be breaking ground on shortly. We have adopted a transit occupancy tax that is dedicated to affordable housing and to the idea of helping nonprofits purchase and preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. That's part of what we're doing with the money that we are collecting on our transit occupancy tax for short-term rentals. Whew, got that one out. And then on the protection side, we've done some things too.
What I love about Jerry's idea is it's really about fairness. I think they're running kind of common sense, and that's what I love about it. When I ran the first time, I did the analysis and looked at some of the commercial buildings, and this is why I support split roll. They have 2 in Menlo Park. There's 2 groceries. There's a Traeger's and a Trader Joe's, 3 blocks from each other. One of them pays 7 times the property tax of the other one. That just makes no sense. They're both grocery stores, 3 blocks from each other. So we need some fairness and common sense. And the other thing is we absolutely need to address this housing crisis. I'm proud to have the endorsement of David Chu, who's chair of the Housing Committee in the Assembly, and he and I talk about this. And one thing we have to do is hold the tech companies responsible. So Apple and Cupertino, when they created 12,000 jobs, didn't fund a single unit of housing. it's no surprise why the housing prices have gone through the roof. We've seen that repeated with Google, and we've seen that with Facebook. So we need to start there.
I want to just piggyback right on the affordable housing. Okay, I'm a county employee, and I live in a rent control apartment. But when I retire, I'm gonna have to move out because each year they go up and up on the rent. So a lot of the retirees have to move out, uprooted from their homes here in the Bay Area. So hopefully that you all can come up with a plan that can retain some of the people that born and raised in this county. Okay. My question is, what are your platform on hate crime? Because the hate crime has really, really skyrocketed. And I'm also on the NAACP board. So I like your platform on hate crime.
I think I can speak for everybody up here in saying that there's not a single day that goes by that we don't think about that exact issue of how can people that have given to this community stay here and be able to be close to their children. How can children move out of the house or out of the apartment and be able to stay in the local community? It's something that never leaves our minds for a minute. And in terms of the hate crimes question, there is so much more that we need to do in California. When you look at the lists from the FBI of the identified hate groups in California, it'll make the hair stand up on your wrist. It is absolutely positively scary. And we need to focus not just on crimes against people of color, that it needs to be the focus always, but the intersectionality, crimes of misogyny have to be cracked down upon. And I'm out of time.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Affordable housing and getting more affordable is job one. We need to do more. If there is public land, it's easier to lean into 100% affordable units, and that's what Burlingame is breaking ground on tomorrow. They are taking a at-grade public parking lot and developing 182 units of affordable housing on that, and 82 for seniors and the rest for workforce. So we have to create more affordable housing. Where it's developments on private land, we have to try and work harder with developers to make sure that there are affordable units built in. Hate crimes, absolutely, 100%. We should be. Those are crimes that are in a different category, and we need to make sure we are putting all of our resources to preventing them and going after the criminals.
Well, we need to make sure homes. One of the things I'm working on with David Chu is rental assistance. We know it's actually much more humane, of course, and cost-effective to keep people in their homes rather than try to house people when they're unhoused. So we need rental assistance to keep people in their homes. And we need more affordable housing so that hopefully when you do retire, and one of us will be up there, we'll have worked on this problem, there'll be places for you to move. And also attainable senior housing. I know a lot of seniors say, I would move out of my house if there was a place to go, and I would free up that space. But right now, it's just not attainable senior housing. On the hate crime front, yeah, my synagogue, all of a sudden we have security at our synagogue on the high holidays, and it's really sad. And let's say the cause is Donald Trump. We have to unite and make sure that Donald Trump, the worst president we've ever had in the history of this country, does not get reelected. Let's all commit to working on that every day. And I started something called the Resistance Fund, and we fund groups that are supporting refugees and women's rights and Muslims' rights.
Thank you. So, on the housing and some other things too.
Sorry about the book. No, it's
Seconds. Let's give them a great round of applause, and also for our good questions. People throwing us curveballs. So they have a packed agenda, so we're going to do 30-second wrap-ups, and we're going to start with you, Shell, and we're just going to go 30.
Okay. I started off with where I've been, so let's talk real quick about education. I'd like to move us from the bottom 10 to the top 10 in funding. on healthcare, I want to make sure that everyone has access to high quality, affordable healthcare. On housing, I want to make sure that everybody has a home, and I'd love to see if we can develop a public transportation system that means people can get to and from their jobs or wherever else they need to go on public transit. And then on climate, we have to leave a world that's not devastated for our children. We talked a little bit about that, but that's the last area I'd like us to go. I hope you'll go there with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the conversation. My cards are here, my cell phone, my email, or Josh Becker 2020. Let's continue the conversation and give me your thoughts and advice. I hope you'll support me and ask for your support and join folks like Governor Newsom, very own Michelle Lieber, and others who have supported my campaign. I want to be the progressive leader on climate in the state Senate, work on transportation solutions and housing, and higher education, starting with early childhood education through to K-12, and more resources for public higher education too.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be here. Mike is sorry he couldn't be here, and probably there's no one sorrier than I am that he's not. Thank you for letting me stand. Great. He is at Burlingame City Council, as I mentioned. He made a pact with his voters that he would always put them first. And if he is elected to the state Senate, he will always put you first. Not special interests, not his own political ambitions, the voters who will elect him. What's the real difference in this race? Experience. The issues that this district faces are urgent, and we need someone who can get the job done.
Well, I want to thank each of you for being here. You look so alert and engaged, and this has been absolutely fantastic, so thank you for being here. You know, my vision for California is to have a diverse state of equality, of equity, where we have outstanding environmental values, where we do the hard work that needs to be done in society. And the last question about NAACP and what we need to do in terms of the communities of color, I think that there is a lot that needs to happen, particularly in this district, on questions of color.
And because these duties are currently being handled by other people. So I'm making the motion to amend the bylaws as read. Is there any discussion or questions on the issue? So we're going to just do this by hand vote. So to vote in favor of the amendment, please raise your badge in the air. And it takes 2/3. So I see. So there's 38 in favor. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Any abstentions?
Committee are Michelle Lieber, sitting right here, Adia Hogue, where are you, Adia? Over there, and Kristen Rivers, who's also over there. So our mandate was to put together a slate for the 2020 Executive Board election next month. First, I'd like to go over the process that we used to come up with the slate. We first polled all current board members to see who would like to return for 2020. We sent a couple of emails out to the full membership to asking if there was anybody who would be interested in running for the 2020 board. And we also asked the board and the nominating committee to suggest people who might be interested in running. The members who expressed interest were asked to fill out an application and take part in a short interview. During this process, we were looking to do our best to achieve gender parity and increase diversity on the board. The process is now complete, and the following SVDC members will be on the slate for the election next month. If you can please stand up or wave your hand when I call your name, if you're here. Jenny Hutchinson, who will be running for president. Shalom Marquardt, who will be running for vice president. Kristen Lynn, she's our current treasurer and will be running for treasurer again. Vinod Menon, who is our current recording secretary and will be running for recording secretary again. Adia Hogue. Bill Barrett. Is Bill here tonight? No. Jeff Levin. Where are you, Jeff? There he is. Jeff Orloff. Frank Ponciano, right here. Kristen Rivers. Michelle Lieber. Dawn Draper, who's doing our videoing over there. Rosie Zepeda. Alexia Worsham, who's not here. Barinder Alawalya, is Barinder here tonight? No? And Marlene Zapata, who made it, all right. So that's our full slate for 2020, and I'm gonna pass it over to Fred, who will call for anybody else who might wanna run and go over the election process.
The way we usually do things is when we announce the slate, we give members of the club an opportunity to go ahead and ask to volunteer to be on the board. And this is the time we do it. You can raise your hand. You will take your application, and we will basically put you on on the ballot when we do our election in our next meeting. So, is there anybody who we didn't call on the board that wants to be on the board? And raise your hand. Do I see anybody? I guess we have a full slate then. Thank you very much.
Bylaws, you have to say today if you want to run.
Yes, right. You have to. So we'll do a nominal election for the slate, and we'll approve the slate at the November meeting.
November 18th. Yeah, give the date and say what we'll be doing. November 18th.
The date is November 18th, and it's going to be here, right?
Right?
Good.
And there'll be a form for D10.
And there's a forum for D10. Thank you.